In this video, I have taken it upon myself to rank every single Rainbow Six Siege event that there has ever been in the history of Rainbow Six Siege. So let's take a quick look through the history of Siege events and decide which event was the best. Starting off then, all the way back in March of 2018, we got the very first Rainbow Six Siege event, which was the Outbreak event, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you've played it or not, have heard about the Outbreak event. It is such a good event to the point where it actually inspired the spin-off game Rainbow Six Extraction. Now unfortunately that game was not as well received as this event, but this event was essentially like a 5-part story mode campaign of all the operators in Team Rainbow fighting together against the alien threat. Overall, I can safely say that this is arguably the most unique event that we have ever got in Rainbow Six Siege. Everything was very, very ambitious, everything was very, very well executed, and still to this day, it is seen as the perfect event in Rainbow Six Siege history. Moving on then to the second ever Siege event, and it was the Madhouse event, all the way back in October of 2018. This was the very first Halloween event we got in Rainbow Six Siege. I don't actually remember playing this one. I must have stopped playing Siege over the time that this event was out. But to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure it was just a normal Siege match, but on a modified Halloween version of House at nighttime. But the one thing I do know about this event is that the cosmetics for it were arguably some of the best event cosmetics we've ever got. As you guys can see, some of these headgears and uniforms are just insane. They are still used today, and they are some of the most sought after skins in Siege's history. When the Rainbow Six Siege marketplace drops, I'm sure these skins are going to go for quite a lot, but overall I think we're going to have to put this event in the mid tier because they didn't really go too overboard for the gameplay itself, but the cosmetics really did hold up strong. With that being said then, the next event we're going to be looking at is the SI event, and while we're here, let's just rank all of them. Overall, all of the SI events are kind of the same. They're just, you're able to play any operator whether you own them or not, and some of them take place on unique maps. But other than that, I believe all of the SI events are relatively boring. Some of them were fine and you could play them for a little bit longer, but they were essentially just normal games of Siege. Moving on from the SI events then, let's take a look at the Rainbow is Magic event, and this was the April Fool's event for 2019, and no one actually knew this was coming. This just kind of randomly appeared in game one day and everyone was caught off guard, and oh my god, thinking back to the time when this event was released, it was actually some of the best times I've ever had in Siege. It was essentially just a modified version of Hostage, but on a very pinkified version of the plane map. All of the skins were extremely pinkified. Still to this day, I still run that full pink and white unicorn Tachanka skin, and I absolutely love it. Overall though, I think when plugging it into the tier list, we're going to have to put it in the fun tier. I think the first time around when we first got this event, it was pretty fun. We have had it returned 2 more times since then, but we'll get into that when we do. But for now, I'm just going to leave Rainbow's Magic 1 in the fun tier. The next event then is going to be the Showdown event. This was released in July of 2019, and it was another event that was a pretty big hit with the community. Essentially what this was a 3v3 game mode where everyone had the boss G and had revolvers. The skins for this event were also pretty decent. Some of them were good, some of them were okay, and overall I think we can settle for another fun event. And following up these two events, we now have the very first edition of the Doktor's Curse event. Now this is the event that we've seen the most in Siege. We've seen it 4 times over the years, and the very first time we did see this event, it was very, very enjoyable. I think all the skins were great. I think the concept of the event was great and still is pretty good. It was essentially that the defenders had to hide and the attackers had to hunt them down and kill them, all while only having the sledgehammer as the weapon. Overall, I think it was another great event. The first time around though, I think it was perfect. I had so much fun the first time this ever came out, and some of the cosmetics as well when they first come out were some of the best in the game. But I do think when looking at the rest of the events coming up in this list, it was definitely one of the best. The next event though is arguably one of the least known. It was actually a paid promotional event for a Netflix show called Money Heist, and this released in November of 2019, and this was not a good event at all. All this event was a normal game of Siege, but it was only on Bank and it was only on Hostage. Therefore, you just had to play Hostage on Bank 24/7 while playing this event. There was nothing unique about it other than 2 skins that they released alongside it, which was one for Visual, which does look pretty good in all fairness, and then another one for Headbanner, which also was pretty good. However, when plugging it into the tier list, I think it would be a disservice to all the other events in this to put it any higher than Burn It, because this was such a low effort event and it was pretty sad to see. With that being said though, moving on to the next one, it is going to be the Grand Larceny event. This was the 9th event we ever got in Rainbow Six Siege. It was released May of 2020 and this was such a good event. I actually had a lot of fun with this event. It was kind of like a mafia themed kind of event. Essentially what it was is everyone in the game had shotguns and all the walls, all the floors were completely soft, so you could open up all the walls, all the floors, and have a lot of different angles, and the main objective was for the attackers to get into the map and crack 3 of the 5 safes located around the map. Overall, I'm going to have to put this in fun tier. I think if I was plugging it in personally, I'd probably put it on the cusp of going into perfect. I have no idea why Ubisoft have yet to bring this event back. I really do hope we see this again, and once again, some of the cosmetics for this event was also some of the best as well. However, moving on then to the M.U.T.E Protocol event, this one's a pretty hard one to rank. This was released in August of 2020 and it was a very broken event. There was a lot of game breaking bugs with this event where you could get out the map, get inside walls, throw frag grenades through walls and actually kill defenders that you shouldn't be able to. So it was a pretty broken event when it did release, but to Ubisoft credit, they did actually put a lot of effort into the event. It was actually a pretty interesting concept. Essentially, all the attackers had access to their drones, and when they threw their drone down, they would actually become their drone. So when they would then come off of their drone, their actual person would appear where their drone was. Similarly, the defenders had like these bulletproof cameras around the map and they could switch between them and the default cameras, and then when they would come off of those cameras, they would appear where it was, so they could use it to teleport around the map. Overall, it's a pretty fun event, but as I said, it made for some game-breaking bugs. I think overall, it was a pretty fun concept, but because of the bugs and stuff, it actually turned into a pretty mid event. I'm pretty sure Ubisoft had to like turn the event off as well, and then they had to re-release it a week later, and when they re-released it, the bugs were still there, so they didn't even manage to fix it. But with that said, moving on to the next one, it is going to be the Fright event. This released in October of 2020, and it was the first ever time that we saw a respawn game mode in Rainbow Six Siege. Essentially what it was like kill confirmed on a completely unique map. When you killed an enemy, they would drop like their dog tags and you had to run over it and pick it up to score a point for your team, and then it was just a race to see who could get 75 points first. A pretty easy game mode, to be honest. It was pretty fun the first few times, but because of its repetitive nature, it did get boring pretty quickly. I also think that some of the skins were a little bit boring. Essentially, they were all like puppetized versions of their default skins, which are pretty cool once again, but because they were so close to their default skins, you couldn't really notice them that much in game. But I think when plugging it into the tier list once again, I would argue that it could be top end of boring or low end of mid, and I'm gonna put it in the low end of mid just because it was an actual event, whereas some of these on the bottom here are just like normal Siege game modes. Moving on from the Fright event then, and we have the very first returning event, and that was the second time that we got to play Rainbow is Magic. Now don't get me wrong, playing returning events can still be fun, but I think when you release the same event multiple times, it can sometimes lose its charm. Now, I think the second time that we got Rainbow is Magic, it didn't really do it that much. I did still find the event quite fun to play, so I'm going to put it in that fun tier. Now, after Rainbow is Magic 2, we actually got the Apocalypse event, which was a pretty weird event, I'm not going to lie. Even to this day, I can't really explain the game mode that well. Essentially, there was like this weird container that you had to kind of pick up. It was kind of like a weird hostage thing, but with like that specific item. And then as for the defenders, they could set up like these alarm systems in each of the rooms around the map, so that if an attacker walked into that room, it would ping them. So it was just a really weird event overall. I think one of the redeeming factors was like the aesthetic of Outbreak and the aesthetic of the skins from this event. I do still to this day love a lot of the skins from this event, but once again, plugging it into the tier list because it was was such a weird concept, I'm just going to have to put it in like the middle of mid-tier. I did have a little bit of fun in some of the games, but it wasn't one of those events that I could play on repeat. The next one then is going to be the Containment event. The first time we ever got the Containment event, I actually really enjoyed it. I think this released alongside the release of Rainbow Six Extraction, so it was kind of like a promotional thing for that game as well. But essentially what it was is the attackers had to fight like these alien infected version of the defenders. The defenders had souped up health and could Oryx dash and jump up through hatches just like Oryx can. And the attackers had to push into the map and destroy 2 small eggs to open up the big main egg in the middle of the map. And if they could destroy all 3 eggs, they would have protected or fought against the alien infection. Overall, it was definitely one of the more enjoyable events that we've had so far. Now, after the Containment event, we had a re-release of the Showdown event, but they actually re-released it as an arcade mode, I believe. So it was only out for like 2 days over like a random weekend. And overall, again, it's just another returning event. It was fun if you managed to play it. If you missed it the original time, then it was your first time playing it. I'm sure you had a lot of fun with it. I kind of wish that they just brought it back as a fully fledged event. I'm pretty sure when they re-released this one, they didn't even add any new skins or any new operators or anything like that. So it was literally a complete re-release of an event for 2 days. Overall, pretty minimal effort for Ubisoft, so I'm just gonna have to put it at the top end of fun tier. I think it's where it belongs. Let me know where you agree and disagree with my list so far. With that being said, let's move over to the re-release of the Doktor's Curse event. This was the second time we've seen it, and once again they added a few skins to both the attacking and defensive sides. I did enjoy the game mode of the second time around as well. I'm actually going to put it in perfect again. I think where the event was actually so good, when they re-released it, it was still so good. And while we're on the topic of Doktor's Curse, the third time around I thought it was just fun. It kind of got a little bit repetitive, and then for the fourth time around, it was pretty mid, and you know what? It was actually pretty boring now that I think about it, because we've seen the event now 4 times. We've got the same map. I kind of hope that if they bring it back for a 5th time, it's on a different map, because that same Halloweenified version of Theme Park, yes, is great for the event, but for this specific event where the defenders have to hide from the attackers, you just have to use up the same hiding spots every single time it re-releases. Just do it on a new map and it'll be a lot more enjoyable again. But with that being said, moving over to the Brawl event, and we got this in December of 2021, and it was the Christmas event. Now, a lot of the skins for this event were great. I'm going to be completely honest, I actually didn't play this event at all. I think I played it once or twice and then I never played it again, and I personally found it pretty mid. Now, once again, some of the cosmetics for this event were fine and they were pretty good, but when it comes down to the actual event itself, I just thought it was mid. And moving on from Brawl over to Rengoku, this was the 20th event that we've seen in Rainbow Six Siege, and this released in April of 2022, and since this event we have not got a single brand new event. Since then, it's just all been returning events. With that being said though, I really enjoyed the Rengoku event the first time around. I would put it up in perfect tier. If not, I'd put it at like the top end of fun tier. I had a lot of fun with this event the first time around. I thought the cosmetics were really cool. I had a lot of fun with the actual game mode where you had all these different effects on the kunai knives and you would go around and use those to get kills. I had a blast playing it, and honestly, I don't see a single thing wrong with it. Moving on to the next one then is M.U.T.E Protocol 2, and the reason this I wouldn't class as a re-release is because even though it's still M.U.T.E Protocol, it takes place on the same map, they actually changed the way the actual game mode for this event worked. I'm pretty sure they turned it into like a gun game mode, so every time you got a kill, you would switch or go up a tier of weapon, and you'd have to get another kill and climb the ladder of weapons all the way to the last one, which was Sledge's sledgehammer, and when you got a kill with that final sledgehammer, you would win the game. And it was the first time that I'm pretty sure we had a free-for-all event in Siege, and then obviously since this event we now have the permanent arcade playlist where there's a similar game mode within it. Overall though, when plugging it into the tier list, I didn't actually play it, so I'm going to put it in mid-tier. I think if you played it, it may have been a fun event. Let me know down in the comments. I don't actually know where to put this, so I'm just going to leave it at the top end of mid. However, moving on, we have the second release of Brawl, and this time I actually did play it. I was playing Siege when they released the second Brawl event, and once again I played it once or twice and got bored of it, so this time around I am in fact going to put it in boring. The next event then is going to be Rainbow is Magic 3. This was the third time we've seen the Rainbow is Magic event, and sticking with the similar theme, I'm actually starting to get pretty bored of returning events in Rainbow Six Siege. I actually made a dedicated rant video not too long ago talking about the fall off of Rainbow Six Siege events over the last few years. Ubisoft, if for some reason you're watching this, please stop re-releasing the same events, re-release Madhouse, re-release Grand Larceny, and re-release Outbreak, or if you don't want to re-release those, then please start making brand new events again. We really need them. And then the final two events of the video is Rengoku 2. I did have fun playing this one, but I'm gonna have to put it in mid-tier because it wasn't anything really different. And then we also got Containment 2, which I'm also gonna put at the low end of mid, because once again they didn't add anything other than 1 or 2 skins to each team. That completes my Rainbow Six Siege event tier list. Let me know where you agree or disagree down in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to watch that video where I rant about the returning events, then click the video on screen. And without further ado guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.